All right, everybody, welcome again to the session. We're glad that you could be here. What we're going to do today is kind of run through the agenda that you see here. Jim Shulman will talk through the new cold weather shelter, and then Martina Condron is going to give us some great news from Room in the Inn. Kathy Jennings will follow up with some information about other shelter providers, and then we'll pivot to a conversation about how we communicate to the broader community when the cold weather overflow shelter opens. I'll talk with Paula Foster a little bit about the transportation plan. We'll talk also about some pandemic precautions. Paula will give us some notes for outreach workers, and Kathy Jennings will follow up with just being mindful of all the gratitudes and that for which we've really got many things, many blessings for which we're thankful. Just one contextual note, the individuals that are speaking on this call convened in July and August really in response to concerns around a spike in COVID cases among persons experiencing homelessness and an interim effort to ensure that those individuals had a safe place to recover from their illness. We then pivoted after Vice Mayor Jim Shulman convened that group, and we addressed that issue in partnership with Metro Social Services and the Office of Emergency Management, moved then to talking through issues with respect to the winter shelter season. So with that, let me turn to Vice Mayor Jim Shulman, who's got a particularly interesting and really wonderful news announcement.
Well, thank you, Brian. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that people could hear me on this program. I really do appreciate you putting together this webinar. I think it's very, very good. So if you're looking at the screen, you'll see a very nice picture of Jay Servais, who was just formally today announced as the new interim director of the Metro Homeless Impact Division. It's a really good picture of Jay. He's a very nice guy. Again, he's the interim director. He is taking the place of Judy Tackett, who obviously you know resigned. Jay has been working with the group that Brian mentioned since July, and I've known Jay for a long time. Great guy. Has been around for a long time in Metro, has done some very interesting things in his career. And so we welcome Jay to this, and he was already a part of the team, and we look forward to working with Jay. I hope everybody will join me. And if you see Jay, just tell him congratulations and tell him that you're glad to be working with him. All right. So I've got the first part of this thing to talk about the new cold weather shelter. As you know, there was we've been moving this thing around for the last several years, and there was some concerns about particularly going out to the old sheriff's facility out on Harding Road. And last year we had the fairgrounds. That was going to happen. Everything was moving around fairly quickly. We didn't know exactly where to go. This group that got together that Brian mentioned actually said we have to sit down and figure this stuff out. So while we were working on trying to find a place for people who individuals experiencing homelessness who were testing positive for COVID, we knew we needed to find a location, so we went looking. This was for an overflow, particularly at that point for the COVID situation, but for a more permanent role this winter to find someplace that everybody felt comfortable with. We knew the cold weather plan was going to go into effect on November 1st. Obviously, it runs until March 31st. Thanks to the group of people who got together and started working on it, we discovered a vacant Metro school building. If you look at your screen, it's the old Nashville Computer Academy. It's at 3230 Brick Church Pike. Metro had just a few buildings. That one made the most sense. We went and took a look at it. It's got a lot of square feet. It's got a basement. It's got room for us to maneuver. And as I go through this, you'll probably understand why. So again, we were looking for a place where we could both house people who were quarantining, again, individuals experiencing homelessness who tested positive for COVID, but we were also looking for a space where we could shelter people during extremely cold nights. So this place worked for both of those things. This place is easy to get to. It's right on Brick Church Pike. It has lots of room, as I said. It's got lots of room outside. It's got lots of space around it. It's got functioning bathrooms, and it's right on a bus line. So the Office of Emergency Management that Jay Survey was basically running before he moved over to this position helped clean up the facility and transferred it into a suitable space for the coming months. So we're very pleased with the space, and I think it's going to be really good for providing shelter for the winter. It also has a commercial kitchen. Again, it has a commercial kitchen. It's very, very good space. The Brick Church facility is right on an existing bus line, as I mentioned. The number 23B bus goes right by the facility. So after discussions with WeGo, that bus, that 23B bus, is leaving will leave from WeGo Central between the hours of 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. Again, leaving from the main WeGo Central, and it will be free of charge for those folks who were going to travel from WeGo Central up to the Brick Church facility on those extremely cold winter nights. Again, the bus leaving, that 23B bus, can leave directly from WeGo Central between the hours of 7 and 11 p.m. It will be free of charge for everybody on those cold winter nights to go up to the facility. And one of the great things about this facility is because the parking lot of the facility on Brick Church Pike is so large, that bus will be able to turn into the parking lot and drop individuals right off at the front door, which is really, really good. The only time it may not do that is if it snows heavily and the bus can't get into the parking lot. But again, that number 23B bus will go from WeGo Central directly to the facility and will be free of charge on those cold nights between the hours of 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. The Brick Church Pike facility will be open to men, women, couples, and individuals with pets. Families with children will be directed to the mission. Again, Brick Church facility open to men, women, couples, and individuals with pets. The operating 28 degrees, same standard we've been operating under. We will be operating under the same protocols as in past years for the opening of the shelter. If the National Weather Service's official local forecast is predicted to reach 28 degrees or below, and that's for particularly zip code 37203. As seen from the prior afternoon, again, remember they announced that the day before they look at it. If it's predicted to reach 28 degrees, the shelter is going to open. The facility functions, again, as it has in the past, as the overflow shelter for people. It is really designed to accommodate people when other community shelters reach capacity. That has always been the practice. But again, if it's 28 degrees or below, we're going to be opening up that facility. One thing to remember for all this is, again, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. We need to be very, very careful. So people will need to wear masks. Hours of operation, shelter will open from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And again, it will be open on nights where the temperature is 28 degrees or below. There will be bus tickets in the morning and rides for those with pets. In the morning, that number 23B bus will be available to take people back downtown. Individuals will be given a cold weather bus pass at the shelter for their use. So on the way out, they'll get a cold weather bus pass. And again, they can take the number 23B bus back downtown to the WeGo Central. For individuals with pets, because of the limitation about riding on the WeGo buses, there will be vans available that will be utilized to take people and their pets back downtown as well. I know there were a lot of questions coming up, and I think people have been trying to respond. I'm trying to read them as they come in. But Brian, I'm going to send it back to you. That's the new cold weather shelter. And again, I'll take a look at some of the questions and see if we can get those answered as we go through. Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Jim. And let's turn to Martina Cochran to talk to us a little bit about some good news that she's got to share from Room in the Inn.
Thank you. Yes, so last year was an unprecedented year for all of us. Room in the Inn the previous year had provided on average 150 beds per night from November 1st to March 31st. And last year that plummeted to just 40 beds average per night, not what anybody would have anticipated or wanted. But this season we are rebounding and we are inching our way back and to pre-pandemic times. And so far we're at 80 beds per night average, with I'm very confident that more congregations will join this program as they see how it's working and how efficient it is. Like the cold weather shelter, we are also asking that everybody be masked. Safety being the number one concern for us. Our community, we know, is extremely vulnerable to this virus, and we want to do everything in our power to make sure that they're as safe as we can make them, because sometimes they don't have any control over. This season, we are hosting at 2 central locations. Last year we had 3, but a lot of the congregations were able to go back to their own facilities, which was wonderful. And we are just very excited, and we'd like to thank everybody for their support and prayers. And we are really looking forward to, like I said, just rebounding and inching our way back like everybody else. But we are very, very excited. Anybody who's wishing to avail of Room in the Inn winter shelter this season will need to come during the day, Monday through Friday, and speak with one of our navigators, and they will be pointed in the right direction to orientations and information sessions and everything good that we know that comes out of housing people in small groups. So thank you everybody for your support, and we are back.
Thanks so much, Martina. We're going to turn now to Kathy Jennings to talk a little bit about news from other shelters and shelter and homelessness service providers. Kathy, and if you need to share your screen, Kathy, I'm happy to turn that over to you.
No, I'm good. I'm good. Can you all hear me all right? Yes, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for coming on here. I am chair of the shelter committee of the COC. And I wanted to give a big shout out. I know a lot of this happened in this task force, but the COC, and in particular the shelter committee, really set the stage for this conversation to even happen. So I wanted to thank all of you that go to all of your meetings every single month and turn up and take part in these conversations. It's all about systems building, and we know that. And we know in the shelter committee, we talked about the standards of care that we would like for shelter. We know we talked about, we did not want that to be non-trauma informed care, which is why this is no longer at the DCSO. And we know that we also still have on our agenda that we would like these shelters to expand for other emergency weather events and other emergencies. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that you guys have worked really hard. And so thank you so much for all that you've done. So a little bit, thank you, Martina, so much for filling us all in on Room in the Inn. It's good that you guys are back. The mission right now has some of the biggest changes. The women's mission campus is closed, as most of you know, for construction. The men's campus will be absorbing women and children. Because children will be staying there, the men cannot take people on the registry, and most of you already know that. They will need to go to the overflow shelter. I want everyone to keep in mind that that is considered an overflow shelter. We're supposed to always try to utilize what we have available first, which is the mission and Room in the Inn. A few other things about the mission to keep in mind is if you have pets, they would like for you to come before 6:30. It's much easier to check in pets before 6:30. If you're a family, so if you have, a husband, a wife, and a child, women and children will stay together, but during the day, families can be together. So it's just when they sleep that they'll separate them into different floors. The male will go with the males, and the women and children will go on the family floor. But that's something that's a little bit new this year for families. So just wanted you to keep that in mind. Let me look here and see if there's anything else. They do require masks. They will not require COVID testing, but they will be taking temperatures. They are down in capacity about 86%, but they will take latecomers, and they will take pets. And so I wanted everyone to know about that. Launchpad is a little different this year. Launchpad is starting a program called Living Well with Better Outcomes, and they have 4 apartments that they'll be housing 18 to 24 youth in for the winter season. So as such, as of now, they will not be offering emergency shelter. And so if you know of people who will need their services, try to contact Ty early. Otherwise, the overflow shelter will be making accommodations for those youth. I think we wanted to talk a little bit about the Flex team. A lot of you have heard we've hired Metro Homeless Impact Division hired 4 outreach workers, and this was a team effort. It's involving the health department, the contributor, and Metro Social Services. If Emily and Brianna and Herb and Mary Margaret on here, we really appreciate that you guys are taking part in this. They'll be going where they're needed. They'll be going to encampments. They'll be going to these shelters. Their primary purpose is again about systems. They'll be taking people into HMIS and CE and putting them on the path to housing, because that's what it's all about. Hopefully, maybe some of them can actually move into housing navigator positions. And I think Brian, you wanted to talk me to talk a little bit about notification. So we still have the website coldweathernashville.com, and we also have the Facebook site Extreme Weather Nashville. So when the cold weather system is activated, when that temperature is forecast to be dropped below 28 degrees, and it'll be like the day before, it'll notify you for the next night. Those systems will be activated on there. You can go there now and also download all the stuff I just told you about the mission. And I'm going to update that this week and this weekend as we have more information about. Brian is going to make us a 1-page that will be on there, a 1-sheet information page, and also the transportation. So I'm going to turn this back over to Brian. He's going to talk a little bit about the texting plan.
Absolutely, and thanks, Kathy. In terms of the texting, really just want to say thank you to Martina at Room in the Inn. What we're going to do this year is consolidate a couple of different texting numbers. Everyone, outreach workers, clients, persons experiencing homelessness, can simply text Nashville Winter to 84483. Again, that's Nashville Winter. Text Nashville Winter to 84483. And what will happen is you will be signed up to receive a notification 24 hours in advance of the shelter opening. So we're going to use the same notification system for staff as well as individuals that need shelter, and we'll make sure that that's available. So that's the other part I just wanted to make a note of is the day of flyer distribution. We're going to do a flyer a little bit like this, and everyone will have a chance to get there. Everyone will receive that. It'll be clear about the Metro shelter will open on this date at 7, explains how to get there, where it is, and then the free shuttle locations that we'll talk about momentarily, where the pickup locations are for those. So this is an excellent opportunity for us to just make sure that we reiterate all of that key information for folks each day that the shelter will be available. Let's turn now to talk about some of those transportation items, and Paula and I will do our best. Paula Foster at Open Table Nashville, I'm going to turn to you and ask you to get us started.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. And I want to specifically thank Brian for really pulling this together for all of us so that we know what we're doing before this season gets started next week. So transportation, we've already talked a little bit about the bus passes, and there will be another 350 cold weather bus passes that we can give out in advance. These are seasonal passes that are activated when the emergency management overflow shelter is going to be opened. So the cards will only work during those times, and folks should keep those cards on them, and they can get on any bus with those cold weather cards during that time to get up to the shelter directly if they want to do that. Miriam, I have one question about the morning bus passes. If you would jump on real quick and let us know. The morning bus passes at the shelter, leaving the shelter, those are single use passes. Is that correct? Those are not cold weather.
That's correct. And those are actually 2-hour bus passes. They're a little different from the cards that you're used to. There are new quick ticket, non-reloadable 2-hour passes.
Okay.
So once they are initially used, they're good for a 2-hour period, and someone can continue to ride the bus throughout that 2-hour period to wherever they need to go.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure we clarified that. So the morning bus passes to leave the shelter are single-use passes, as Miriam just described. So thanks. Thank you. So one of the other things that we are going to be doing this year that is different than years past. Last year, I think most of you know that there was a pilot program called Nashville Homeless Connect, where we were able to have some folks very generously trying to figure out if this is something that we could do on an ongoing basis, and helped get folks to the shelter last year. It worked incredibly well, and we are happy to say that we have applied for some funding through the American Rescue Plan, and we're pretty confident we'll get that funding to pay for Nashville Homeless Connect to actually be able to provide that service again this year. And we're very excited about that. It is a limited service, so there are 4 pickup locations. We are working on the pickup times so that we will be able to get that information out to folks and let them know when to be at those locations if they need a ride to the shelter. So those locations are the Brittany Park. So it'd be at the entrance of the park, right behind the Bojangles. Walmart at Southern Hills, that's the VIP camp location right there at Harding and Nolensville. The Dollar General Market out close to the Mill Creek camp at 301 East Thompson Lane. And then another pickup in the north at City Road United Methodist Church. So those are what we have at the moment. Those things are subject to change. We're still trying to work out some detail. Thank you. That's right. Thank you, Sheila. The Harding and Nolensville is 4040 Nolensville Pike. There's one further down, Brian. So she's correct.
I'll make that change, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant to do that.
Thank you,
right
Sheila,
before
for
we jumped
catching that.
on.
Yep. Nope. Thanks for catching that, Sheila. Appreciate that. So those shuttles will be free of charge. So outreach folks, if you are working in other areas like down at the other Walmart further down, we know that there's folks out there. We can bring those folks to the location where Homeless Connect is going to pick those folks up. That way you're not going all the way from, one end of the county up north of town to the other. You can do that, have them there at the pickup times, and those shuttles will take them to the shelter. The 23 bus, I think, as Jim has already talked to us about, the number 23 bus at the WeGo Central, anybody can get on that bus with or without a bus pass. So whether or not they have the cold weather card or a single use pass or whatever, they can get on the bus if they have no bus pass at that stop and get to the shelter. And we think that's a huge change than what we've had in the past. And we're very, very happy that we've been able to work on this. I will tell you that in our discussions, we know that sometimes there's, snags and snafus along the way, but we have a very dedicated team of folks who have decided that, on the first night that this is implemented, we're going to be at WeGo Central to make sure things go smoothly. And I even believe Brian's going to bring brownies for the bus drivers. So there you go. We're going to make it work. And this is better. Again, this is a good plan. In addition to things that we've done in the past, we think that this is going to be very advantageous for our folks. If folks have a hard time remembering which bus to get on, there's several things you can do. You can give them a piece of paper with the bus number on it. Brian says we should just get a Sharpie and write it on their hands. They don't lose it that way. But whatever works for the folks that you're working with, for our friends, we want to make sure that we're maintaining everyone's dignity and respect. We don't want to, just assume that they're children who can't remember things and have to write on their arms. Because that's what I used to do with my kids when we'd go out in public. I'd write my phone number on their arm in case I lost them. But we want to make sure that we're respecting everyone's, dignity, and if they need help, great, we can do that. But I think most people can remember that it's the number 23 bus.
Absolutely. And one quick note about that, we have ordered bracelets that say, get on bus 23B to go to the shelter. Those are bracelets that, we can hand out, or that can be handed out on the shuttle when people board the shuttles, and they can put those on. But in the absence of the bracelets, if someone's having trouble, we're just going to make sure that the Sharpies are available. I do that only because, like Paula, I don't put them on my kids. I put them on my own hand to remember things, especially like groceries. So we'll figure out how to make that work, and really appreciate that. And thank you to all of our partners at WeGo. This just in, WeGo has clarified that it will provide service for free from WeGo Central starting at 7 and continuing until close of business for the evening. So all bus routes on the all bus runs on the 23B starting at 7 will be free. There will be no cutoff time for that. So again, just that that partnership continues to grow, even texting back and forth. Thank you, Miriam, for that clarification. That's awesome. Let's turn now to pandemic precautions. And this is sort of maybe a little bit in our wheelhouse over here at Neighborhood Health. And I want to talk a little bit about the importance of masking at the new shelter. This is critically important, especially with the Delta variant. And so one of the things that we're going to do is make sure that we hand out as many masks as possible throughout. I'm staring at several thousand masks being stored here in my office, and we're going to make those available to folks at any point. I would invite you to contact me if you would like masks for your team or to hand out at any point. I'll be more than happy to help empty my office. So please reach out to me if you want to receive any masks at all, and I'll make sure that you have my contact information right there in the chat box. The other part about this too is that we want to make sure that everybody is aware that rapid COVID testing is back weekdays at the downtown clinic. We did have some supply chain disruptions earlier this year. Those have been resolved, and we're able to provide that weekday rapid COVID testing without interruption right there at the downtown clinics. Also, just want to emphasize, not only are the rapid tests free, but also our COVID shots, flu shots, pneumonia shots, and the like. So this is incredibly important. And gosh, one of the things that we've got to remember is that almost 745,000 Americans have been lost right now. And when we want to look at the Davidson County numbers specifically, we're looking at over 1,141 funerals in Nashville-Davidson County just because of this pandemic. So please consider going ahead and getting vaccinated if you haven't done so already. You have many options to get vaccinated, you, your staff, and all of our clients and patients. There are over 140 locations in Nashville-Davidson County that provide free COVID vaccinations. But I want to point out and just really emphasize one thing about Neighborhood Health. We're not only going to provide free COVID vaccinations, we're going to do free flu, free pneumonia, and we'll throw in a shingles for free. So just, we're doing buy one, get one kind of thing. Come on down, see us. We'd love to see you at DTC each weekday. We also have a location in East Nashville, the Inglewood Clinic, and our Welshwood Clinic in South Nashville to make sure we've got great coverage where we're providing all 3 or 4 of those vaccines for free on a walk-up basis. Do give us a call if you can, but we'll take care of you no matter what. Metro Public Health has asked me to remind everyone too that free COVID shots and boosters are available at all of their regular clinics in Woodbine, over at 2500 Charlotte at the Lentz Building, and on Trinity Lane. They also offer 2 vaccination locations right in the One City development at 350 28th Avenue North, and over at the old Kmart location at 2491 Murfreesboro Pike. So that's a 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. on weekdays that they're doing special vaccinations. With respect to COVID boosters, that is something that's beyond the scope of this call. We will be sharing more information with everyone next week about the availability of boosters and how we're approaching that. So I think there's been a lot of questions about so many of our clients, patients, and friends have gotten the Johnson & Johnson. What's appropriate in next steps? We'll make sure that you have more information about that next week. So with that, let me turn back to Paula to talk about some keynotes for outreach workers. Paula?
I'm not sure I can say a whole lot more than what Brian just said when it comes to COVID vaccinations and flu shots. You know, I think you all know that we work with a population of folks that are very, very vulnerable in so many different ways. So it's important to make sure that we're not only protecting ourselves, we're protecting our friends who are living out there every day. So we think it's imperative that you all get your COVID vaccinations. I hope that you've already done that. You know, and I get that it's a personal issue, but you know, we know from a public health perspective that this is the best way to fight this pandemic and make things better as we go along. So we're going to encourage you to get those. Very, very, very please get those. You can get it through your own provider or where you've got it. If you've got your first ones, you can get you're eligible for boosters because of the area that you work in, because the population that we serve of folks that we love dearly are very vulnerable. So go out and get your vaccination if you haven't already got one. Get your boosters if you haven't gotten those, and definitely get your flu shots because we want to keep you all healthy so that all of you can continue to help our friends.
really appreciate the comment that Caroline has made in the chat box around making sure that we've got masks available at WeGo. We will absolutely have those on the first night, and we'll make sure that we've got a good supply of those for everyone. Thank you for that, for calling that out specifically, and I'll make sure to pack my pockets full of good masks. Again, I just also want to emphasize disease barriers are gorgeous. I mean, just look at that smile right there in front of you. You've got a little girl with a mask and then a staff member with an N95 and a face shield. Those things are so important. Please, if you need masks, if you need face shields, I want to be your best friend. Just email me. We'll figure out what we need to do to get you the supplies that you need to keep you and to keep everyone else safe. So with that, as we move to, before we move into questions, let's turn now to Kathy Jennings to talk a little bit about things for which we're incredibly thankful. Kathy?
Yes, we are incredibly thankful. Brian, first of all, I'm thankful for you for doing this. I really appreciate all the help that you've given us. I'd like to talk a little bit, the emergency task force that came together. It really was a collaborative effort, and I was really proud to be part of it. So I want to thank them. I want to thank Metro Social Services staff, Renee, Robert, Judith, the Metro Homeless Impact Division, the COC. You guys have all been so supportive. Office of Emergency Management staff, that was Jay. It is no longer Jay, but thank you, Jay, and for your team. WeGo and MTA, we're really happy that we were able to come together on this. Miriam, thank you for leading that, and Steve, we just appreciate all that you've done. And then Metro Public Health staff, we don't often talk about them, but Rachel over there and Abigail, and I know there's a million other people over there that I don't know their names. We appreciate the flexibility you had with regards to the flex team. That's how we got them so quickly. It was Metro Public Health, and for all you and Brian do to keep us all healthy. So thank all of you.
Kathy, thank you for that. With that, let's turn to the group, and I'm going to bring down the slides so that folks have a chance to show their face and ask their questions. So what we're going to ask folks to do, especially since this is being recorded, if you would come off mute and pose your question so that we capture that for posterity. So again, if we could ask people who have questions to come off mute and then just go ahead and ask your question.
You know, this group's got to have some questions. Come on, where are they?
I mean, one of the questions some folks asked about Room in the Inn details and the mission details. So again, those are all downloadable now on coldweathernashville.com. The transportation plan will be downloadable. Brian will have a one sheet that I think he's given you the link for, but that will also be on that site. So everything will be on that site. It will be downloadable so you can print it off and pass it out.
Kathy, one quick note about the transportation plan, and again, there's a link for that. I put a bit.ly link in the chat box, but I'll go ahead and put the full. Not that it matters, but I'll put the full link in there. The key part that I think that we're talking about here, we describe how all of this is working. We build on what we've done in prior years. We talk about the hub and spoke system with the shuttles and WeGo MTA, and the really important role of WeGo and MTA throughout all of this. We discuss how outreach workers can really help and specific things that we're asking them to do. We list out where the pickup locations will be, and of course that has to be finalized, and we'll have that information very early next week. And then we talk about this day of the day of flyer that will contain some of that key information. So this is a work in progress. We've got this done. We're pretty far along, and we're by the beginning of next week, and certainly before we move into cold weather, the first cold weather event, we're going to be in really, really good shape, thanks to all of the work for people on this call. Other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. I know that something that's come up in the past is single dads. Where would we direct them?
You mean dads with children?
Mm-hmm.
There's a phone number that you will call. And so that is the one, when there's a case like that, there's a phone number to call, and that goes directly to Metro Social Services, and they will take care of that. I'm sorry, Paula.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you knew. So I jumped in there.
Hi, I have a question. Looking from a national perspective, and maybe this is for future years, just wondering if Nashville would consider changing the cutoff to activating cold shelter to 32 degrees. Several cities around the country use that as a cutoff, and that 4 degrees can make a real big difference.
I think we would direct that to Renee Pratt at Metro Social Services or Jay at OEM.
Well, I can try to handle that. That has been looked at before. I think the last time we looked at it and tried to force it, it was a matter of resources. After working with this group this latter part of the summer and fall, there is much more cooperation towards getting this stuff done and doing it correctly. And particularly this transportation plan is, I think, really, really exceptional. The better we get with this, the more we can start pushing and see if we can get that thing up to 32, which is where I think it should be. Okay, so hang with us. We'll keep working on it.
Thanks for considering it.
Andreas from People Living Nashville here. I'd even like to add to that and say the feels like degree, I think, is an important thing as well, because sometimes there's inclement weather, rain, a lot of wind, and that changes that number for folks in their experience and how it feels like.
Yeah, I would agree with Andrea about that. And it is absolutely something that is an ongoing discussion, and it really does come down to resources. It's a big piece of it. And I think the more we continue to put together a plan that is viable and sustainable. And one of the things that this particular group got together, the shelter committee of the COC has been working really hard on this for a very long time. This particular group got together for a specific issue that had to do with COVID sheltering and making sure we had a place for people to go in the summer after the fairgrounds closed. And out of that, we found this location and knew that it was the right location to be able to do the winter sheltering. So we took what the shelter committee was doing and we ran with it to make sure that we got this right and that we were able to do more than we've done in the past. And I think, like Jim said, it's a work in progress. We'll continue to build on that. I think it's incredibly important that, we get to those the right numbers. And I think, Andre, that's a great point. Sometimes the wind chill is a lot worse than the actual temperature, and the wind chill is incredibly critical for our folks who are living out there. So this is not a done deal. This is one more step in a forward progress, and I think we could continue to make that progress. So again, I want to thank everyone who's been involved in this to make sure that it's being done, and we're going to get there, and this is a good step forward.
I did want to speak. Someone asked, what about the quarantine COVID plan? So that is already in place and it will stay in place. And so currently, if there's a need for overflow for single individuals, there are facilities at the Brick Church campus and there's separate entrances. So they'll be able to do COVID quarantine at that facility at the same time that they do winter shelter. Does that make sense?
Jim, on that note, can we talk about what our vision is for the future with this, or is it too soon to do that?
Oh, let's get, given that we're almost out of time.
Okay.
Maybe we can do a follow-up on that.
All right, saved by Brian and the brownies.
Yeah, I was going to say. They haven't hatched yet. We still got those eggs.
We're still working on that.
Right. Do we have time for maybe one or two more questions?
I just have something to share in addition to what was laid out in the transportation plan. There are also up to 500 annual bus passes a year available through the Connector Card program. So if you have housing and navigators working with the Metro Homeless Impact Division on the Connector Card program, I know that it is actually going gangbusters this year and is pretty amazing. Outreach workers have been doing a great job getting those cards in people's hands. So, and again, those cards are usable all year round. So if people are looking for additional ways to connect people with transportation, not only during cold weather, but throughout the year, that's a great opportunity as well.
I have two quick questions about the buses in the morning from the shelter. A problem that I've run into a lot is people that need to be at work very early, so they don't want to go into the shelter to miss work. And I was wondering what time the 23 bus starts running, and then also if the bus passes people are getting will be all day bus passes, or if it's just like a one pass that they can only get on the 23 bus and maybe not a connector.
Yeah, so it is a single pass that is available for a 2-hour period. Once you tap it for the first time, the clock starts ticking for that 2 hours. It is just available for that 2-hour period once the clock starts on it. I can post the link to the Route 23B bus again in the chat. It looks like the 23B on weekdays leaves Brick Church and Ewing at 4:29 a.m. And on weekdays and on weekends and holidays, looks like 4:36 is the first run. And I know David Eiler from our operations team is also on the call. He is instrumental in making sure that the buses are running smoothly in the mornings for folks leaving the shelter. David, I don't know if you want to chime in and give us some more information on that.
Hi, my name's David. I'm with WeGo. I'm one of the supervisors here at WeGo Public Transit. And yeah, we try to put enough vehicles out to help with what's going on, depending on the numbers. But it's a great help when they're able to text me the number of people that are in the facility. So I already have a heads up so that we can try and make sure that we get everybody moved as quickly as possible within that time period. Our biggest thing is that you need to try and help us out by staggering. So if you let 15, 20 people out, remember that's going to fill up a bus, and that's not going to be able to let us pick up any other customers along the way. So depending on the number of people that are in there determines what I've got to do to try and help out with making sure that we're covered and making sure that you get as many people as moved as possible in a short time. So if you can help us out with staggering and let me know the numbers the night before, then we can make arrangements to help out.
Thanks, David. One comment, just that Metro Social Services is committed and it's in the plan that they will text you by 3. A quick response to Caroline, and I think this just goes generally, there are going to be situations that someone has to be at work at 4, or somebody has to do something really odd. We have and I'm just going to call it a petty cash account, and we'll use Uber or whatever we need to for sort of one-off situations. So if you become aware of a need like that, certainly just reach out to me or any one of the shelter staff. But I'd say this plan is meant to serve 90 to 95% of the need, and we'll come back for the other outliers and make sure that they're appropriately cared for and served.
And I'll throw in one more thing. We are also short bus drivers. So if you know anyone who's looking for a job, we will train people to get their commercial driver's license. You don't need to have your permit at this point to be able to drive a bus. We will train you and pay you during the permit training period and throughout the whole training period. We really need more bus drivers to help us not only fill the need for overflow shelter nights, but in general, and to be able to increase our service overall.
Hey, so Mary,
Just
could Jim and I be bus drivers? Could we be trained on how to be? So maybe Jim and I could be drivers on the 23B.
Listen,
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that starting hourly salary is $22 an hour. So if that works for you, I can hook you up with our HR department.
All right,
Right,
quit saying that,
I'm in,
because
Brian.
half of the outreach workers here don't make that much money. So, let's move on. shall we?
So we shouldn't tell you that it's only $122 a month for insurance for medical, dental, and vision as well.
Yeah, hush, David.
Yeah.
Just stop. Look,
I have a
I also
lot
want to
more.
say to Caroline's point, one of the things that you need to know is that during the cold weather shelter, they're gonna they're gonna take the bus from the last stop, which is at Ewing and Brick Church, and they're actually gonna go just a little bit further and pull into the driveway front of the school to drop people off and to pick people up. And that will start around 7 a.m. If anyone needs to get out of the shelter earlier to get to work, you can walk to the bus. It's not far. It's right there. I mean, you can see it. You can see that last bus stop from the front of the school. So if someone needs to leave early, they can get their bus pass. They can get out. They can get on the bus before the regular route starts picking people up from the shelter.
I have a quick question. Anyone from MHED or Metro Social Services? What is the COVID quarantine number? I don't have it on the top of my head. If Oasis has someone that they know has COVID, who is it that they are calling? Because I know it was Judith and she was answering that phone. I didn't know if Abigail's on here or Renee.
Kathy, I'll get that number for
Thank
you. And we'll, and that's a good, and I'll get that to you next 10 minutes. And if you could forward it
Great,
on. that-
I've got it too. I'm just trying to find it with all the screens up. Just lost it. Okay.
Thanks, Kathy. So everybody, what we're gonna try to be conclude. Thank you for we spilled over just a few minutes. Want to ask if to send us forth into the day. It's been a rainy day and it's been a dark day, but when cold weather season starts next week, it's going to be. This is the darkest point. We're gonna go into a really bright sort of plan and an approach. And we're going to make this a really positive cold weather shelter season in a great new facility, thanks to all of the work of all of you. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. This is going to be a great cold weather season. Appreciate your help and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brian. Yay, Brian.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.